Groom.
Good
morning.
Yeah, it's episode 30.
30?
Yeah.
That's like 30 times more than one.
I know.
That means we're over half a year.
That is 2 times more than 3.
That's true. That is
What?
true. I'm not listening to the maths at all, but...
I am. Yeah. Hang on.
Yeah, what?
Episode 30.
What do you mean?
We're starting
it's
Legacy.
It's 4 times 5. It's 4 times 10 more.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
right.
math. Then
numbers.
7.
Anyway, it's episode 30, and we're talking about Legacies.
Is there any connection between those two things that you've brought them up?
Those two things?
Being the number 30 and Legacies?
No, not at all. Caleb just said, let's do next episode's Legacies, and I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic idea. In fact, when he said it at that time,
we were all kind of like, yeah.
4 different ideas came in my head, and I'm like, let's do it. And then the problem is now, I can't think of any of them.
I feel like we should determine what we count as a legacy.
It's not there then.
Yeah, because like I was thinking about it before, like, can the same person and same character count as a legacy? Like in a video game, let's say. If there's like years and years apart, can the new game be considered a legacy?
I suppose it depends. I mean, with a character,
same character and everything.
With a character, I think potentially they're not a legacy, but the revival of the series is taking on something's legacy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When I say a legacy, what I was thinking of is the mark something leaves on history. So when I initially had the idea, I was more thinking of the reason I thought of the discussion idea was in relation to Star Wars and whether or not they should remake something like the original trilogy. And then when I thought of that, I thought this is actually a good idea for other series as well and other things where should a previous incarnation of something be respected, or does it not matter?
But would you consider the Assassin's Creed games all legacy games?
No.
No? It's just curious, because obviously they are different characters and they're taking up the same kind of mantle in history.
But they all contribute to the same story.
Yeah, but in their own world, they're kind of a legacy in the story of themselves.
But personally, I wouldn't, just because... I mean, it would depend on which game, but... I mean, if you look at the first few Assassin's Creed games, they're all the same story, just because the character's a different character. It's still following the same story. I would say that's the same series. Just different characters. It's like saying... is the prequel trilogy...
But I'm not saying the game is a legacy on itself. I'm saying the characters in the games are legacies, just like how The Flash has multiple different legacies of people who take up that mantle. Same with Batman and Superman. But
then, personally, for me, I wouldn't, because they're not taking up the same mantle. They're just the same part of the same organization. It's like saying, Anakin is taking up a legacy. No, he's just becoming a Jedi. He's not taking up the same mantle. He's not trying to be what came before. He's just another thing. It's why I don't consider Green Lanterns. It's a bit weird, but it's why I sort of don't really look at them the same way as other heroes, because it's an organization. You being a Green Lantern, you're not necessarily the Green Lantern. You're just a Green Lantern among many that are in existence and many that have come before and will come in the future, if that makes sense.
Uh-huh.
That's just my way of looking at it.
Yeah. Just interesting to draw a line. Like, I was just thinking, like, what is really counted as a legacy and what people consider legacies. That's all. Like, because obviously, like, you can have family legacies, and I think that's what I was trying to draw out of the Assassin's Creed games, obviously. Although, then again, like, by that point, I guess all of it would just be I forget his name. the main character of the series.
Yeah, Miles.
Yeah,
Yeah. But then I will admit that in some ways,
you can view it.
moving forward,
Yeah,
you could say that a legacy's been discarded, or there's a different legacy, because obviously, if a particular installment doesn't have the same DNA, or it's a completely unrelated character, then you
yeah.
can sort of, I suppose, draw a bit of a difference there. But then again, there is still the legacy of its carrying on what came before it, you
Yeah.
know. So,
I,
well, sequels could
I,
potentially
I
also be
assume
counted
Alex
as.
is blowing his nose.
What's up?
You were muted. Where were you? You didn't want to join in? Yeah, he's blowing his nose.
Fair
Fuck
enough.
you.
What? Just because I called you out. Is that the reason?
You were
Also,
bullied.
I don't also know very much to talk about assassination. Assassin's Creed.
No, I
that's
was
the one.
talking but we were talking about like what is counted as a legacy. Like how
I
would you
wouldn't
consider
call
a
it
legacy?
a legacy if it's within the same franchise. Well, no, sorry, that's
What?
not exactly.
But then what if it's a
No, like-
reboot?
No, how do I put it? If it's, sorry, I wouldn't consider a legacy if it's a sequel, even if it's in a
Okay.
different perspective.
Okay.
So you're not counting Star Wars the Star Wars sequels as a legacy.
No, I'm not counting the sequel. I'm not counting Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi as legacy.
Oh yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
counting the other
Obviously they're not
trilogies,
legacies. No.
Oh,
Maybe.
okay, I get you. Okay, yep.
But like, we can't make a game and go like, hey, that's pretty good. Let's make a new one a few years later with a different main character, and go like, we'll continue on the legacy. It's just a sequel, bro.
Yeah, I was more drawing at the fact that like in video games, like you can have a reboot, where it's like,
legacy,
but is that a legacy? Would you
a legacy
consider a
thing
legacy?
creating based on a legacy would not be created by the creators, but by the people that were affected by the original thing.
Mm.
So you wouldn't consider the prequels to be part of the same legacy of the original
That's
trilogy?
I'd hardly
separate
consider them. I'd hardly consider them a legacy, to be honest. I just consider them more Star Wars.
I think of them as a thematic legacy from the movie standpoint, but in terms of the story, less so.
So are we sort of, because obviously we're sort of, because we're talking about them as if they're not a legacy or not. From my perspective, everything is a legacy, but it depends on to the degree in which. I mean, everything's a legacy to me, but it's just whether it's a part of the same legacy and what that legacy means.
Like you can even have it just as a weird thing where it's like, well, you say you have this one creator, he creates a multitude of things. It's like, it's not like one thing's a legacy off of other things he creates. It's just he's the person. That's the mark he left on the world for other people to get inspired off of. But yeah, it's him himself is the legacy, not the work he created individually.
But then each individual work can also be its own legacy.
Yeah.
I mean, you take George Lucas, right? He's made multiple films. Each one has its own legacy, and if you were to reboot each one, you could see how you'd bring into question whether or not it's respecting the legacy that came before it. But then there is also the legacy in general of someone. If you're making a series in the style of a particular director or whichever, then you could say you're trying to base yourself off of that legacy or take from that legacy.
This is getting very confusing, let's be honest. Following that.
No, I get it.
Yeah, no.
No, I get it.
I think
No. I mean, but from I understood what you said. I'm just saying, like, from just taking a third perspective, I can understand how someone might look at this and everything we've said and be just confused generally.
But basically, I can summarize it like this: a legacy is basically the mark that something has made on the world. Let's say we talk about the legacy of Star Wars, we're talking about what it has done in the past, like its existence in the past, right? And it has made that mark, even if Star Wars was a pretty big fucking mark, but other series may not be a massive mark, but there is still a mark they've made. They've still existed, and they will remain there. It's why when you're talking about something maybe like One Piece, I would struggle to call it a legacy, done legacy, because it's still going, if that makes sense. It hasn't finished yet. It's still existing, if that makes sense. But once it finishes, that's it. That sort of thing existed, and that's it.
No, I agree with that. If it's still going, if it's still ongoing, then there's a different way to define its legacy. And you wouldn't really have as much of one. You can't really continue off of that if it just isn't over yet.
Yeah, precisely.
What's happening?
We've just agreed that One Piece doesn't really have its proper legacy yet because it's not over yet.
One Piece? No, of course it doesn't.
We're just comparing like what exactly it is.
I mean, within the story and for characters in the story, they can have inherited will and legacies, but not as an overall series. No, there's no fucking legacy there.
No. And the reason I sort of, I mean, the whole idea I had for it is more how a legacy should be respected, because obviously there are things that have taken the legacy. Take superheroes is a great example, because superheroes have been redone fucking since forever. And it's interesting to consider, well, is there a legacy they have to respect? Is there a degree of the original source that they have to respect? Or should they be able to just take it and do whatever the fuck they want with it, if that makes sense? Like, let's say they took, I don't know, Superman, and then made the character completely different. And they weren't, perhaps they weren't necessarily portraying it as an alternate world. They were sort of portraying it as, this is what Superman is now.
Yeah.
And this wasn't connected to the current story. But
it does happen in comics as well. Yeah. Like, in the 90s was a very dark time in terms of DC Comics. They went a lot darker with their storylines and crap. And they included, obviously, the death of Superman and what followed that. With Superman with his long fucking hair and his bloody black suit with silver on it and whatnot. Yeah. He was a little bit different as a character in the way he was portrayed.
But let's say like them all rebooting it. Should there be a degree of they have to remain to the character? They have to stay true to the character? Or is it okay for them to make a very different character and go on with that? Like, how much respect must they pay to the source? I mean, that's the other thing as well. I mean, when you're adapting something, say from a comic or whatever, when you're bringing it to a movie or a TV show, how much respect do you have to pay to the original source? If any. Because, like, you see, I mean, again, with superhero movies, it's very easy, because you see people who, say with Marvel or the MCU, they have problems with some of the suits, and the suits aren't the same as the comic versions all the time, so they're like, some people have a problem with that.
Yeah,
and
like
I'm interested.
They can't piss out of the sewer good toilet. They have to take off the full suit. That was a big one.
Yeah, so, but I'm not talking about like design-wise,
visual design,
how similar it is, and I find it interesting to think, well, they've changed the suit, but it is their own universe, it is their own world that they're creating. But should they still respect? I mean, of course, under some extent, they still keep the general style.
But obviously, there are limitations in the same time. It's like where it's like, when would you consider being satisfied with something? Because realistically, obviously, comics aren't real. They're not showing real pictures and whatnot. So, like, one thing that I always like get a little bit frustrated in is like, let the Batman suit's head move. The cows never move. Let their head move. Or in the production of the Flash TV show, even his original cow, he couldn't move his head. He had like alternate suits just for the headpiece that he had to take off and on, which is like so ridiculous.
But I mean, that's more a functional thing.
That's functional, yeah, but it's like, but you just have to take it into consideration when you are viewing something live action, of course. And not
But
get
even
shit
like,
over.
I mean, take Thor. I mean, I heard some people have a problem with the fact that it was only until Ragnarok that he got a fucking helmet. And
No, he wore the helmet in the first one.
He
He
wore
just
the
took
helmet
it
in the
immediately.
well, yeah, Belly, yeah, sorry.
I mean,
But yeah, the point is like some people don't well, I wouldn't say that it was they made it as a massive problem, but they did criticize that fact that he's
I feel like it's a bit weirder with that one as well, because I feel like Thor can go in without his helmet. There's comics where he
In
doesn't wear
most
the
comic
helmet.
iterations, he has no beard and a helmet.
Yeah. No, I think it's fine. There are some where he doesn't have a
No, we think it's
helmet.
fine. It's that we're not giving our opinion here. We're saying this is something
Yeah, no,
that other
no.
people had a problem with.
I'm just saying, it just feels because like obviously the distinct trait was there. He had the golden locks, which I think when I look at Thor, that's why I think of more over than the fucking hat he wears. Whereas if this is Jay Garrick, nah, I give him the helmet. There's no that is just part of this character. You have to have the helmet. Very similar helmet. It's just a metal thing with wings on it.
but I do think it is interesting, and with some other things you might turn around and say that's not, another one Dragon Ball Evolution.
What?
I mean,
What's that? I don't know that.
many of those characters. Well, but that is a perfect example, because regardless of the film's quality as a film itself, many people would say that on the basis of it being faithful to Dragon Ball, it
What?
fails, and a lot of people have a problem with that.
That's not a legacy. That's just a shit show.
It's adapting the legacy of Dragon Ball. It's using the term Dragon Ball to try and they're trying to make a Dragon Ball movie, but obviously they fucked it up.
Ugh.
But I do see it taking after a legacy. It's trying to do that. Whether it does it well is what the discussion's about. But obviously, people have a problem with the lack of faithfulness to the original source, and it's like, well, that's part of the thing, right? A lot of people's problems come from the adaptation quality rather than the film's quality, which is also, in my opinion, poor. But it is interesting to think at what point is faithfulness not a problem.
About when faithfulness is a problem. Would you? Because there are some cases of adaptations which are poor adaptations, but they are fantastic films. Notably, it's not a bad adaptation per se, but I think of Captain America's suit in the Avengers.
Yeah.
I completely forget that it's weird as fuck, but only because the film is fantastic. So if the film is amazing, at what point do we need to care about how corny a suit looks?
I'll be honest. They did Captain America's suits very well for modernizing them.
Oh, later on, yeah, in
Yeah.
Civil War, Winter Soldier's one was fantastic, but notably Civil War's Captain America's suit was fantastic as an adaptation of a modern day adaptation of what Captain America's suit could look like.
Yeah, but I also liked like when he was in the first Avenger, where he's just in that shit suit that he would normally wear.
the Army Combat, yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, it's shone a light on it, but it's like, yeah, practically not useful at all.
Yeah. Windows security virus and throw a bit of fuck off.
Ow.
And even when so with the because the original idea with should they reboot the original trilogy, the reason I found the thought interesting is because on
Very
one
true.
hand, obviously I mean more like taking it and actually
fully remaking it.
Yeah, like taking the story but then having new actors, new everything. And on one hand, you know, I mean, again, I don't have a problem with the original. I think the original trilogy is fine as it is, but it is
Most
obviously
of the
getting
original
older.
things are fine as they are.
Yeah, precisely. But
Yeah.
there is a thing that studios like to do, and that's rebooting films. And I was thinking, why often, especially when it comes to Star Wars, people wouldn't like a rebooted version. But
Mm.
I found it interesting why they wouldn't.
I have a question. What's your opinion on obviously doing the same? It's the same type of concept, but transferring it to a new medium. So like all the Disney movies getting into live action.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's just the adaptation thing,
It's
you
a
know.
little bit different, but it's on that same kind of thing of
But it's still
redoing.
like
I mean, the
it's an
reason I don't like
adaptation.
that is because they don't care. They just do the same thing with
Yeah.
just higher budget. If anything, it's to say it's. I'm going to rant a bit on this topic. It's overvaluing live actions over animation and severely underpaying and undercaring about how much animated material
Mm.
costs or how much animators should deserve to get paid. Meanwhile, these 3D artists, these actors and directors get paid by the millions for far less effort. We've all animated before. We know how fucking hard that shit is. I'd like to
I
be paid
respect
that
all
much.
animators, and I even say like after watching any of those live action films, the animated version's better, because it is, because it's an escape from reality, which is exactly what I wanted out of it.
It's they're creating this legacy, this quote unquote upgraded version, which isn't always the case, and paying
Mm.
more money for it than they need to. And the animated medium is one that exists and one that can excel if you just give it attention. But
And one
they
that
don't give it
can
attention.
still be breathtaking.
Fucking
But
what
I'm
if
not gonna lie,
one
I would love to see a live action Emperor's New Groove.
sure,
That'd be fun.
but like. What if I think was I don't remember the exact details, but it was I don't know if it was the Oscars, but they won like best animated feature of like last year. And What If is cool and all, but Invincible, I think, came out last year, didn't it?
They come out last year or the
And
end
there was
of?
also Arcane, and there was several other anime things, which it just immediately snobbed. This is a different rant off Legacies. I just
It's
really
okay.
fucking hate underappreciation of animators and animation. Not even just Japanese animation in the West. That's fucking whatever. I mean, regular animation.
Yeah, it came
in
out early last year.
Yes, it wasn't even nominated.
Wasn't? Are you serious? That had a fucking huge cultural impact.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. Those memes were everywhere.
Point is, animation deserves way more attention and credit and praise, appreciation. But Hollywood refuses to even pay animators more than the fucking minimum wage, and I don't understand why. Japan is not free of this, by the way. They severely underpay their animators a lot of the time, notably Mappa.
I mean, that's I think that's something that happens in general.
Yeah,
The people who are often at the front get all the attention or get all the money, but then the people who are behind the scenes, no one knows who the fuck they are, and the money they get can tend to be less.
Unless it's like a
and I fucking hate it.
specific person or thing, like this is their own original content. I feel like they get more of a shine on.
Most of the ones animated doing
Yeah.
all the things. And even that's why many places outsource their animation because it's cheaper and they need the money.
Korea.
Wild fucking anyway, legacies, adaptations. I think I'm curious as to where we draw the line between remaking something or continuing off of it.
See, I was just thinking like remaking something completely for a game. It feels different almost to it being done for a movie. When it's a movie, I feel more like why. If it was a game, I would be more interested in how they would approach it.
It's more because games obviously have a functional element,
Yeah, obviously,
and
yeah.
the problem is that
Movies don't.
technology heavily defines the quality of a game, right?
Yeah.
Well, not heavily, but you know, obviously there's examples like Minecraft, which is
Yeah.
it's not got the greatest graphics, but the design of Minecraft was good.
No, I
But
think that's different because Minecraft it chooses that style where it can be more, but it chooses that. I think
No.
It's
I'm not saying
regardless.
that. I'm not saying that
Technology does affect it,
the
and
limit.
the choice,
You're necessarily
increased
limited.
choice is what's different.
I'm talking more just in terms of what style you use. In the end of the day, even in not, I'm not even just talking in terms of graphics. I'm also talking about in terms of gameplay and all that. I mean, many things just did not have the ability to perform the best. Um, and I mean, at the time, obviously things are great, but there was definitely a limit. And if you look at like a few like 20 years ago, and you look at the games then and the games now, there is a difference. Now, of course, corporate greed has come into the picture, so many games are rat shit as a result. But the games that are actually good, you can see the quality put into them. You can see,
Well, obviously when it comes to games, because obviously Nintendo has been porting over older games to a newer system, but that's just sort of updating the graphics. It's still the same game.
yeah. And I mean, like take Skywalker Saga. That's a very recent example.
Oh yeah,
Skywalker
that's very
Saga
recent.
was able to do what it did because it has new technology. Back in the day, they could not do that with the complete saga. They
No.
physically could not.
It feels completely different going back and playing the original games. It feels like you're playing a completely different game
Yeah.
altogether
Yeah.
compared to playing the Skywalker Saga, which Caleb and I are currently addicted to. Yeah. I 100% in the boot today.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But then I do think, for me, I think where the line is with remaking and continuing on, it does depend. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say with something like Doctor Who, we had the classics and then the new continuity.
That's a legacy in itself as well.
Sure, but it is
More,
continuing
more,
on. It
but
is also continuing on.
but this is one of the things that, like, I think Alex mentioned before, where it's a person who was influenced by something as a child now being able to control the content, which Doctor Who is guilty of.
Yeah, the new Doctor Who's were made by the fans, not by the original people that made it.
Yeah.
So it's a legacy in that regard, but yeah, it does what it does.
I mean, I do think obviously sequels can
Can still have involvement with the original creators. I'm not saying
but the sequels can still take aspects from the legacy of the original, but it still contributes to a larger legacy. In a way, I view legacies as sort of nested. There can be an overarching legacy, but they can be small. You can group them into smaller chunks, if that makes sense, all the way down to a fucking character. Like with Doctor Who, the legacy of the TARDIS. That's something that has made its mark in pop culture and is referenced many times, and that in itself has its own legacy. But then it also belongs to the legacy of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Which has also left its mark and been referenced in other ways, as many other things have.
It's police box.
But yeah, I wouldn't consider something like New Who a remake. I guess you could call it like a soft reboot, but that's more. But it's not a remake.
Because would you consider it more like Ben 10 and its sequels, like with how it fully just changed the style, or not? Because those were more the same creators.
If it's the same continuity, I don't think it's a remake. If it's continuing the same story, then it's not a remake. But
even
you could say
Omniverse?
Yes, because it's the same continuity.
It just felt a little bit weird and drawn out because there was no real connection. It felt like
it was still the same thing. It wasn't like it's not like the new reboot, which is actually a reboot because it's not continuing off what happened before. It's completely said, no, we're starting from the beginning. We're doing what we want to do. Fuck what came before. Meanwhile, Omniverse while it did do things to change its style and change certain ways it did things, in the end of the day, it's the same Ben. It's the same everything except the art style, and the storytelling style is a little bit different.
Yeah. Spooky.
Oh, that's another good because
What?
Bleach, right?
Yeah.
How it ended, um, in a way that obviously felt a little bit rushed,
Yep. Because it
and the
was.
idea
Man was
that
sick
if
Felt a bit, just was.
look, the idea that the anime perhaps will
Change aspects
change and
because
or
of
add
Kubo's notes.
bits to it and just make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Is that or like that's sort of an interesting idea because you're adapting something but you're changing it to make it better or to attempt to make it better. But you're still changing something and you're still changing it from what it was originally like. In some cases, if it's at least good, is being not faithful not a bad thing? I'm talking in general. If the entire thing is, or if a larger portion of it is not as faithful, not just like a suit or something.
Faithfulness is an interesting topic when it comes to the times, which we talked about a bit before, and obviously style, because you can animate Captain America's suit and it wouldn't look corny, but obviously First Avenger, no, sorry, the Avengers looks the way it does, but there are some stories you wouldn't adapt the same way in a different medium onto, let's say, comics. You can get an entire comic line and take different aspects from different lines, different stories, different characters, and rewrite them completely. How is that still Captain America? If you take 100 different comics from Captain America, take a little bit from every single one of them, and make that into a movie, is that a poor adaptation because it skips so much content and changes the story around? Or does that keep the, or is it good because it keeps the idea of what Captain America is?
That is interesting. Yeah.
What if you consider it something about like let's say you have something like DC Comics or Marvel, you have a creator who's allowed full creative control, and they leave their mark through that creative control and create their own legacy within the series. Most notably, I'm thinking currently about Jack Kirby and the mark he left in DC Comics by creating the fucking New Gods and fucking Darkseid.
That would be part of his legacy, yeah.
Yeah.
And then someone can take what he's left behind and continue with it. You know what I mean? That's taking from the legacy that Jack Kirby made.
It's also interesting to think about, like when things happen like that, because obviously, years later, Marvel would create characters based off some of the ones Jack Kirby created in DC, like Thanos.
Or even take the MCU with movies like Ragnarok. Prior to that, Thor movies weren't as well received, but then Ragnarok came out, and even Chris Hemsworth, who admitted he wasn't really happy with the Thor's character to that point.
He would have fully quit if that change didn't happen.
Yeah, precisely.
That's the way he was leaning to.
Fucking Anthony, what's his name? Anthony Hopkins? Odin's actor. Straight up just did not want to be involved. Did not care. Immediately was like, oh, I absolutely want to do this. Yeah, when he read the script. For Ragnarok.
Yeah, because he had to do less. Oh shit.
That's just Taika coming in and leaving his mark on the series, and when you watch Ragnarok, you can sort of associate it with him because that's something he's done. And if he can, when he does future films for the franchise, you may be able to see the continued styles he does, and you can sort of.
We've got 3 months, by the way, till that new Thor film, and not like any promotional material. Just a heads up, that's wild. I'm not going to watch the material, probably, but where is it?
Oh, sorry, I forgot Doctor Strange is coming out.
Oh, true.
I
Man,
see
there's so
ads
much
for
I
it
gotta
all the
watch.
time, but I still forget about it.
First day tickets.
Good for
It's thank you. It really means a lot.
you. Yeah.
It's But if you let's go to, I'm not going to pretend I've read every single Thor comic that exists, but the Thor Ragnarok based on World War Hulk, Clan Hulk, and nothing like it. In fact, as much as I love Korg in the MCU, absolutely piss poor adaptation of the original character. There was so much more depth to what Korg was in the comics. I like the MCU version. He's very funny, but it's genuine. It's if I were not, if it weren't a good film and I didn't like what the direction it took, I'd be so fucking pissed.
I feel
But
like
but like it's the point where an adaptation. This is not what Thor comics
Yeah.
were. This is not what the story was. Yet because we enjoyed this film a lot, and because it took it in a direction different, is that still the legacy of what Thor was in the comics, though, of what this character, what these concepts were, or is that a completely new direction? Is that still on the legacy of Thor, or is that a new thing that other
you
things
bring
will
up
build
a
upon?
good point, and I would reference Iron Man more as a guilty party in that.
Because he's a good character in the movies, but
Yeah,
not in the
but
comics.
then because of the way he was in the movies, it altered the way he was in comics.
Which is unfortunate.
Mm.
Unfortunate that the comics were not as good. Or not
Unfortunate that the comics felt like they needed to mimic what was successful
Right,
to
yeah.
be good. And sure,
Yeah.
if it ain't broke, but come on, you're supposed to be the original.
There should
Oh,
be
so that's another interesting thing, seeing how something takes from the legacy of one thing, and then that legacy takes from the new legacy,
yeah.
which is actually a rather interesting dynamic. And so yeah, I take it you don't like the old legacy taking from the new legacy.
Well, no,
If
because it's already an established thing. There's
Yeah.
already
Yeah,
this
right,
thing going
right,
for it. If
yeah,
you
yeah.
get
But then
some
you
new
put
version
it-
of a thing, copying that means the original ceases to be.
Of course, it depends on the character. Iron Man, I'm a little bit more okay with it just because
Oh yeah, because I know
he's a fucking B tier character at that point. That's why like they were able to use Iron Man for such a big promotion and start something so big. It's because he wasn't that popular, but he had enough interest to get people behind it and eventually getting more bigger, well-known characters like Captain America and Thor.
And Hulk.
It's even interesting because that just
Oh,
reminded me about how with Super. I can't remember if the manga did it a lot, but
Or Triangle
the
Super. Right?
Yeah.
the anime did it a lot where it would reference other shows, and that was also that was interesting because it's a sort of a similar thing where
That's just a funny thing, though.
shows have taken from the legacy of Dragon Ball and the legacy and the mark it's made on the anime world, and then
And things
Dragon
still
Ball has
reference
come
Dragon
back.
Ball.
Dragon Ball has come back and almost paid it back, almost referenced these other things to say, sort of, to pay them back. You know, they referenced Dragon Ball, and now Dragon Ball is gonna acknowledge the new generation that has flourished since Z's ending.
Yeah.
I think that was a great thing they did in the anime. Just all those references. Beautiful.
Fair.
And Dragon Ball Super even carried on the legacy of Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, would you say that Dragon Ball continued the legacy of the legend, the myth of Journey to the West?
Yeah. Because I think legacies.
Superman,
When something takes from a legacy, I think all it needs is to take something from it. Like something can take from multiple legacies, if that makes sense. Because you could say let's say
the legacy that Dragon Ball really left was the type of creation of what shonen is today. Something that didn't exist prior to Dragon Ball. Sure, there were influences before Dragon Ball, like Fist of the North Star, Journey to the West, and eventually anything else Akira Toriyama would be inspired off of Superman, like Superman 2, Terminator, and other things, Alien. But obviously, like, yeah.
Obviously, like, yeah.
Yeah. I forgot what I was saying.
But it was obvious, so we got
Yeah, it was obvious. That's right. You understood. Shut the fuck up, I forgot. I lost my train of thought.
Someone spoke about how, like, changing story to a modern version. Is that potentially why Star Wars wasn't created anew, because it's not our modern day, it's its own world?
It's its own world, yeah.
Meanwhile, things like Ghostbusters are like, oh, now we're just female Ghostbusters in 2015. I fucking haven't watched Afterlife. Fuck.
Wow. Same, but it's I think it's out now. Like, it's out on other platforms, so I've got a good place to watch it. So, yeah, I have to fucking watch that. I've watched a lot of shit.
Yeah, they went from Ghostbusters with women, Ghostbusters to children.
But that's interesting because it takes the same concept. Okay, conceptually, sure, let's go for it.
But it was a complete reboot as well.
Version. Let's get this concept that we've got before. Four random fucking cunts. They're like, hey, we got ghosts. Let's fucking beat some ghosts up.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Ghostbusters one in a long time. Anyway, we take that concept of Ghostbusters and we put it in one viewing.
It's essentially three smart people and another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can take them and we can make a story about them hunting ghosts and this whole ghost conspiracy. Don't mind me and my lack of knowledge about Ghostbusters, despite seeing those films.
One of the ghosts sucked one of the main characters off.
It's fine. And if you wanted full females, that's absolutely fine with that. The problem is it just wasn't any fucking good. It didn't seem to do anything original or unique, except for Chris Hemsworth's character, who I love so much.
It was pretty fun.
Like, I'm sorry, I just, like, he's wearing glasses, but he took the glass out because I kept getting smudges on. Sorry, it's a stupid fucking joke, but I giggle every time. So we got stories like that, which can take place in our world and just in a new setting, modernized for modern audiences, whereas Star Wars maybe not the same. But the one that's been on the back of my mind for the last 45 minutes that I kind of want to talk about, even though we can't really discuss it too well.
Is it me?
Because one of us have seen the original, one of us have seen the reboot, and one of us hasn't seen either.
Oh, we're talking about Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
Oh, right, fair enough.
I'm the either person. I will contribute a lot. I know the monkey talks, and that's it.
Now, we've got
that is
all.
An interesting one, actually.
If we ignore, we can talk about the 2001 version if we like, but I'm more interested about the original version and then the new prequels.
Monkey.
So we've got these original Planet of the Apes films, which I'm not going to talk about, Caleb. I haven't seen them. How are they?
Completely different. They are like different.
Don't they put more of a focus on the actual human characters?
It's because it's basically the opposite in a. So the new films is basically the apes rising up and the apes becoming smart and then fucking over humanity because of a fucking virus or something. And then in the originals, it's the humans coming to the planet of the apes, and the apes are already like a society and they're a civilization, and it has the apes imprisoning the humans because, well, they're like humans. What do humans do to apes? It's the exact same thing. So it was that sort of style in a way, where instead of like actual apes that were just smart apes that fucked over humans, and it's completely different than the original than the new one, with the exception of like two of the characters being called Caesar, and some references obviously, and about smart monkeys.
I do have a question. So, what's the difference in timeline?
The new ones would be prequels.
No, I mean not the timeline. I mean, how long did it take for the new movies to come out compared to
When
the
was
old ones.
the last Planet of the Apes film?
Yeah.
And the old ones.
Old ones, not the reboots.
I'm
The
asking
90s.
more like a question of, is this like Doctor Who, where people were influenced by the old movies and were fans of that and created
Oh
something?
yeah, definitely.
Oh,
Lot of time.
potentially, yeah, potentially.
Because I clearly know nothing. I know the monkey talks, that's it.
Because they're also both commentaries in some way, or at least that's mine. That was my thing I took away from them, because the originals were a commentary on how we treat apes, and the new ones sort of did that as well. But it sort of
Wasn't there a monkey
had some other
genocide
things.
or
Well.
something? I don't know.
A monkey what?
Monkey genocide?
In which one?
I don't know, the new ones.
There was a war.
Okay, close enough.
In both, I think there was a war.
The thing is,
I haven't seen the originals in a long time.
with the new ones, it's not in any way taking away from what the original Planet of the Apes films were. It's taking that concept and like, here is a part of a story that we can also tell. How did this world, which was the twist of the first one, spoiler alert, which I know somehow, is that this is not a different world, it's just at the same world later. We can take that concept of this world was originally the human world, now put it over on by apes, and we can see how that story came to be. And then they can still tell different stories with different themes without it being cheap. The Rise of the Planet of the Apes, just like how you said, talked about how humans treat apes. It talks about how humans experiment on creatures other than themselves, so they can, for the betterment of them, and then they can just so easily kill them and discard them. And Caesar is the exception. He's one of the ones that the scientists were like, I don't want to kill a kid, and they just raise him instead.
And that's
this idea of animal cruelty and experimentation and how that's it's not gonna fucking happen, but how that can bite us in the ass, basically.
Monkey.
and they do it in a different way. They take it from a different perspective.
Very different perspective.
While the originals started off in the sort of future, so to speak, and then eventually one of the movies goes back to the past and shows how all this shit happened. The newer ones started from how all this shit happened, and they take a much more of a grimy sort of, more bleak version of it. And even I think even later on, the later movies of Planet of the Apes actually have like segregation themes in them as well, which is
the newer ones.
No, the older ones. Sorry.
Yeah. So these new ones take that a concept from those films, can take some of those themes and take it in a wildly new direction without ruining what the original stood for. If anything, helping it. And then Dawn of the Planet of the Apes has other themes of survival and what's the word? It's desperation, basically, for survival. Right? We see how much some creatures are willing to go to, how much they're willing to rationalize irrational ideas just for the idea that they might live a bit longer. We see that the apes also have these same emotions and these same flaws that humans do, and how these two it no longer becomes like humans and apes. It becomes similar to like your Native Americans, the genocides of the natives and
Or just general genocide.
what's the word? Immigrants is not the right word. It's I'm gonna say invaders, because yes.
What?
Because in Australia we had the original people, the Aboriginals, and then the people coming to take their land. Basically, it took themes of that, the
Convicts.
natives versus not convicts, the ones that brought the convicts,
The cunt.
The British.
The British.
The British, yeah, mostly British. That
the
history
natives.
does show mostly British.
Takes those ideas and puts them into now what's apes and humans. And instead of those films where we're at a future perspective looking at these people, which are just humans, where like they're humans, they should get along. Now we're looking at apes and humans, and they're taking it to an extreme, when really some of the characters bond and are clearly much more similar than they make out to be. It's a interesting take on the idea of what it is to be human, and the Desperation Survival. That's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. War of the Planet of the Apes. I haven't watched. I'll get to it in a minute.
Bro, you are now tempting me to rewatch the classics.
Do it.
I've not seen them in fucking ages, but I remember when I watched them, they were fucking banger. They were good.
Monkey.
I reckon they did it really well. Especially the first one. The first one was very well done. The later ones,
Monkey.
the last one was a bit weird, but other than that, mostly pretty good.
Monkey.
So that's these films. This trilogy, in my idea, is a fantastic idea of what. A new installment is the wrong word, but continuing on the legacy of something that's already been loved by so many others. Fantastic concept. And I'm wondering if other things could do, because there's also... I like The Mandalorian a lot because it's not based off of... Because most new Star Wars films are based off of Star Wars. But the original Star Wars films are based off of samurai films and Western films.
Yeah.
The Mandalorian is based off of those same things. I find it interesting now, actually. That's a topic. New films are based on the old films, but the original films are based on something else.
Dragon Ball.
Yes.
Do you lose the heart of what that film is by basing it off of previous versions? Or if you get... Because Mandalorian is like peak Star Wars, and it's not based off the original trilogy. It's based off other Westerns.
One thing I feel like should always be kept in mind when creating something new. And that's the world building of shit that is prior. If there's something that you're connecting to in any way, you should make that known. Doesn't mean you have to make it, we're just linking all the stuff back to it. You just have to be aware that this is going on in the world, which sometimes shapes the aspects of what is happening around. Doesn't mean you have to make it a focus or anything. Just there has to be some consequence in the background of this. Like obviously with Clone Wars, like I know Caleb, like towards the end of Clone Wars, you're leading into the episode 3, and you have to keep that in mind when creating it as well. But like, there's just certain things where it's like, you don't need something prior or some other series to make something good. That's why I'm really liking Moon Knight right now, because it has made no reference to it. It understands that, yeah, sure, these things might exist, but it really has no different aspect because of where Moon Knight is currently.
And I like when things don't treat you as idiots.
Yes.
Like when a series does its own thing, but within a pre-existing universe, they don't treat you like an idiot and say, well, we need to spell out exactly where this is compared to the rest of the series. No. All they have to do is show, empty stormtrooper helmets and like, okay, I have an idea of when this is. I don't need you to tell me. I don't need you to outwardly reference Luke all the time, right? I know, I get it. I get what happened. Right?
Yeah, because like with Mandalorian, none of us fucking knew when in the timeline it really was. We could make assumptions based on things people said.
Things, but we didn't need it.
Yeah, we didn't need it.
We only really got a good date when Luke appeared.
Yeah.
Because then you can see, so it's pretty close. Pretty fucking close to...
It's close, but it's like, you still don't know how close, because Luke is a little bit more experienced now.
Yeah, but it's not... It's obviously... It's closer to the original trilogy than the sequel trilogy.
Yes.
Thankfully.
That becomes clear, yes.
And then even when the others appear, and I think that's why Series 2 worked so well, is because Season 1 didn't heavily have the Jedi everywhere and all this.
Because it makes sense as well. Jedi is a very small faction and group, and there is not a lot of Jedi at this point in time.
We only saw a saber at the very end,
yes.
And it wasn't even like a lightsaber; it was the dark saber. So it's like we didn't even see that. But then in Season 2, when that does appear, it doesn't feel like it's going to take took away from Mandalorian, because the Mandalorian almost created its own world. Sort of.
It created its own side story.
And that allowed us to better accept things from the rest of the galaxy because, well, it is in the same universe, but it has been telling its own story and it continued to do so. That being said, when it came to Book of Boba Fett, I think that's where the conflict happened because Book of Boba Fett didn't really tell its story before the Mandalorian came back. It should have told its story, then later on, Mando should have returned. Not
Yes.
he comes back a few episodes later and absolutely fucking steals Boba
show.
Fett's show.
And then
for like
ruins
two-
both his story and Boba Fett.
It's said that those two episodes were the
Yes.
best episodes.
Yeah, sure, because
Yeah.
they brought back all these cool things, but in the long run, it's just not interesting.
They were good episodes. They weren't good Book of Boba Fett episodes. Because
Yes,
No,
It was
yeah.
Boba Fett had
It was Boba
half a
Fett.
minute of screen time across both of them.
he didn't even. He barely spoke.
Mhm.
Which is like his role in the sequel in the original trilogy.
So it's really
So
continuing
they
to
have some
there,
faithfulness.
It's always very different when I feel like you know where a character ends.
Yes. Yes.
Obi-Wan, for example.
Yes.
We all know his ending. It's very
That's why
interesting how they used him in prequels and how they will use him coming forward whenever the series comes out.
And it's interesting. I'm not going to go too into it. Obviously, Alex hasn't finished it, but Clone Wars, even earlier on, the way it does things, it knows that you know what's going to happen when you see the clones, and especially the Jedi, trusting the clones, and you know what's going to happen. You know what happens in Revenge of the Sith. You know that eventually, these clones that trust the Jedi and the Jedi who trust the clones, you know that the clones are eventually going to turn on them. You know this is going to happen. And I love how it doesn't treat you like an idiot. It says, yes, you know what's going to happen. That's what makes this story even better.
Yeah.
Because of the anticipation.
Yeah, that can be very interesting. It could even be more interesting when certain key things, because you already know it and you know what will happen, but the characters don't know, obviously, because you're watching it. It's a very interesting concept. Like, obviously, like in One Piece, when like Ace was up for execution, we knew that like 100 chapters before Luffy actually finally found out. Or so, I think. Maybe not 100, but more like 70.
Yeah,
60.
yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, yep.
Yeah, like we could all draw upon this aspects of things that we learnt prior, and we're still watching the characters learn about it, or in like things like Star Wars, or I guess Marvel sometimes as well. You have this idea of, okay, that happened in the future, what's happening now? Because obviously these characters still don't know the information, but we get to witness them learn the information and possibly learn something new about it in the process.
And even we know the stakes of the information itself that the characters don't necessarily understand. Like that one episode in Clone Wars where they discover the chip, the chip inside that causes Order 66.
Yeah.
That's like, we know what it is, but the only people who actually know in the story are the Kaminoans and the villains. So that is sort of interesting when you see these other characters that don't know. It's like, fuck. Understand, if they did know, this would change literally everything, but they don't need to tell you. They don't need to tell you that, because you know. Even in the beginning, before it's even 100% confirmed that the chip is related to Order 66, if you've watched Star Wars and paid attention, you would know what is happening, why the chip is doing what it's doing. You would understand that because you're a fan and you know. And I think that's what makes things very interesting, and I do love that. That being said, it can make it hard sometimes because I do see some people complaining about character decisions, and it's like, you make that judgment based off of hindsight. That person in the series wouldn't necessarily know.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, there's points and things where it's like, you know how an action takes place, or you know the end result of the action, and it does feel a bit weird sometimes to see that action and decision take place when you already know what's going to happen. If it does feel a little bit weird.
But then you can't fault the characters for that because
Well,
obviously they
you
don't
can't
know.
fault the characters because obviously, yeah, of course it's predictable storytelling because you already know how it will end.
We also have the perspective of its story. The people in the universe don't know it's a story, so while we might say, yes, I know this person's going to die because generally people that are set up that way are going to die. That's just generally how stories work.
It depends on the information because I know many films take a point in gaining an aspect of the final scene, taking that to the front and then rewinding it, but not because we don't have the full context. We understand of where the story's heading, but not what will happen or how we will get there. Being able to create all those subversions of expectation to occur later on down the line when we already have this preconceived notion of how it might end.
Yeah. And that too is just that's series taking the legacy but also using it in a very beneficial way.
Yeah.
Taking what's happened before and what you've seen before and saying, hey, look, we're going to do something very interesting with this.
Or even when series draw you out of a complete random scenario and it's just oh, what the hell's happening? This doesn't make any sense. And then you realise it's just a dream or some shit. Or just a thought somehow.
Yeah. That happens sometimes in a show where something's happened, it's weird, and then you realise, oh, okay, that's why the events were fucking stupid, because the events aren't fucking happening, or it's a genjutsu or something.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can identify that better because, we're not in the fucking genjutsu.
Yeah. One of the things I most notably remember is from the Star Wars, the Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith comics, when it's Darth reunites with Obi-Wan in the comic and apologizes for what has occurred. It's what? I'm sorry, what the fuck's happening? And then you realize, it's just a Force dream.
Yeah.
Just the thought he had.
And sometimes it happens, you'll be watching something and they'll be having a vision, and the person will be like, this person's dead, and I'm like, I know they're not dead. They are alive, because sometimes in Rebels it'll say, yes, is Ahsoka dead? I mean, she's in the Mandalorian, so it's which can be a problem when it comes to certain things that, especially when you have expansive series, it can make certain deaths and certain with Clone Wars, every time that Anakin or Obi-Wan are in danger, it's they're not dying here. I know they come out on top, which for some people can get rid of tension entirely, which can be a problem. But that's more of a problem with prequels than Legacies.
I think that was the interesting addition for Ahsoka in the Clone Wars. Originally, when it was airing, no one knew who this character was yet. She was a character in the show. What would happen to her?
Mm.
And now it's nothing. But back then,
that's true. That is
I remember that feeling back when it did first start to air and shit. Back then,
and especially since we never saw any hint that she was in. She survived Order 66. So it's well, for all we know, she could die then or she could die before. Yeah, that is true. In cases like Ahsoka and all that.
What is your favourite legacies that you have consumed?
I don't think I can answer that because there's a lot that I could say, but I want to mention Devilman Crybaby.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a really nice. This is me having not read or watched the original. Real nice modern interpretation of this story with vastly different ideas, and takes, once again, not seen the original. I also like Planet of the Apes, the new trilogy. Never seen the originals.
I mean, when I think of a legacy in terms of manga, I think my brain will always go to JoJo's just because of the character family legacy that occurs.
Well, that's an in story.
That's an in-story legacy, but it's still legacy.
Yeah, it still is.
Other than that, obviously in One Piece, inherited will is something that's pretty big for characters, and it's just the general motivating factor for a lot of characters in One Piece. The inherited will from others, or a legacy of a specific idea within a story, I would say. Idea or concept. Yeah.
Here's a different one. Here's one. I haven't seen this film. It kind of just came out. There's a new film called the unbearable weight of success or something. Unbearable weight of the unbearable weight of massive talent. That's what it's called. And it's basically a film where Nicolas Cage plays a character called Nick Cage.
What?
And it's based on all the promotional material I've seen. It's fantastic. It plays in the idea as a legacy in how it affects the world and how people see him in a certain way and he's not getting the same roles he used to. It's kind of like a meta commentary because he's now only role fucking playing is himself as someone who's not. It's fantastic. It's got Pedro Pascal in it.
I remember when he played a wizard.
I remember when he played fucking Ghost Rider.
He played Ghost Rider. He played a wizard.
That is the thing. Because
he tried to play Superman.
some actors.
Played Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's up, Gil?
Some actors have a problem because they often have a love for their previous work, but then what ends up happening is they do a really popular film, and all of a sudden people don't give a shit about their older work. They give a shit about their new popular work.
Or sometimes
I can understand how that can be annoying.
Sometimes it feels like fan notions of the person, and people really enjoying the person over the characters he plays, and that
That's
influencing how they act or how it is chosen for them to act, such as Mark Hamill just playing himself in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Admittedly, the only reason to have a Spider-Man Noir pop is because he's voiced by Nicolas Cage. Like there is no way I'll pretend there's abs in that patches. But well, I'm absolutely one of the reasons that film about Nicolas Cage was made.
I mean, you heard me. You heard me when I was watching Clone Wars, and one of the fucking droids was voiced by David Tennant.
At some point, your involvement in something becomes better than the actual.
I did the same thing in Mandalorian, when one of the droids were voiced by Richard Ayoade.
Bruh.
Hey. And I think this is obviously less close to me because I'm not that close to those characters, but one of the like Imperial officers in Rebels is voiced by Gara's voice actor.
Oh, yeah.
And that's always nice. It's always nice to see someone that you recognize. You're like, I know that person.
You sound like Vilgax.
I remember Alex at the beginning of Naruto. That's Wolverine. That's Wolverine.
Because I love Wolverine in the X-Men. I recognize that more than fucking Vilgax. I didn't associate Vilgax with Wolverine, but I associated Wolverine with Salazar, which you associated Vilgax with.
I associated both Vilgax and Heat Blast. Look at them. Same series and same voice actor. But,
if I hear that voice, I assume Salazar, honestly.
And then Orochimaru with, I think, Ghost Freak. I think they're the same voice actor. I'm pretty sure. They sound very similar, but yeah.
Bro, Ethan, you know the old lady from Gintama, the one that runs the store?
Yeah.
I'm fairly fucking certain same voice actor as Orochimaru.
Osuru's voice actor.
Who?
Osuru.
Oh, I thought you said Subaru's voice. Osuru, yeah.
Yeah, Osuru is the old lady that you're mentioning.
Yeah. I don't remember names of guitar.
Well, it's my second favorite series, so I remember the name.
And so, we didn't really speak about how a person's legacy so much. You know whose legacy we should talk about?
The big man Sabbath.
Jesus Christ.
Who? I'm sorry, I don't know that
I
person.
have no follow-up joke to that, unfortunately.
I don't know that person. Who is that? Are you sure? Oh, you mean Yuha Bach from Bleach?
No.
No?
Yes, I do.
No way.
I mean,
He's not fucking canonically Jesus, is he?
yeah.
Yes, I do.
They said it in the thing that his father was the Soul King, which is essentially God.
Bruh.
He's essentially Jesus.
Jesus.
Jesus. Or did you mean Jesus from part 7 of JoJo's?
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Ah, okay,
No,
okay, yeah.
I meant Jesus, your mom.
What?
That's it. Yeah, man.
Then eventually we can get into legacies of actual other, not media, but political figures, for example. For some reason I went to Hitler, but let's forget about that.
But I mean, to some extent, there is that, because obviously there are many people who are inspired off of Hitler and other such characters.
Yeah.
Characters.
I mean, there were things with.
You know what I mean.
Alex sent me a message on Twitter the other day, showing me Golden Kamui panels that was also linked with real life images and photographs of certain events, and one of them was panels that resembled things that Hitler did while he was doing his
the way speech pattern is the wrong one.
Yeah.
Speech as in like his hand patterns when he gives a speech were mimicked in that manga. There's also other. At what point where do references fit into legacies? Actually, I wonder.
I say they take from a legacy. Yeah.
I mean, I would say
continue it on.
I would say they continue the flame of the legacy, or they keep the legacy alive. I wouldn't call themselves legacies themselves. They just help to kind of maintain the legacy.
Well, no, they themselves aren't legacies, but they're taking from the other legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in Food Wars, when there is a JoJo fight.
It's only because of the cultural impact and the that it has on the author that even existed. So perhaps it's not. Perhaps the continuation of the legacy is not so but how it influences how new creators write their stories and draw theirs. Because
more so, I'm thinking like when it comes to something like a reference, you are continuing the previous. Even then, like you're continuing what came before by taking it and transforming it into your own piece, if that makes sense. When something, say, reboots a story, it's the same thing where it's taking what came before, but it's transforming it into its own thing, but taking aspects from the previous thing. I think references are the same. You're taking something, a reference, and you're transforming it into your own piece within this thing, but it still came from that place. So it still continues that legacy on.
In Blood Lad, the main character does a Kamehameha. He gets bleeped because of what he's doing, but he still does it. Kamehameha.
But yeah, even that, I mean, that obviously continues on. That continues on Dragon Ball's legacy, because when you reference something, you're essentially reminding people of that.
Yeah.
which I think is always great.
Drugs. Drugs.
References are always beautiful.
Drugs. But obviously, like, you wouldn't consider a spin off a legacy, would you?
I would consider it taking from the legacy. Yeah,
Yeah. But it itself is not
Yeah, of course.
what you would say is a full legacy.
of
Like, I'm
course,
thinking
of
in
course, it's a
games.
legacy.
I'm
Of course, it's a
thinking,
legacy.
yeah, it just feels weird sometimes with some like either games or products. Like I'm thinking about like the Mario and like his world that he's created, like with Yoshi and all that crap. And
Mario
Toad even
Kart's a
has his
spin-off.
game.
But it has its own legacy.
But now it's I feel like it's its own thing now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was still
You
a
know-
spin-off.
You know what I was thinking about earlier today? It's such an interesting thing to see such a modern Nintendo product be able to thrive in something that has years and years, decades and decades of cultural impact, and that's Splatoon. It has somehow been able to just join all the ranks of these great epics and just been able to sit there while some of those epics no longer get new games. It's just interesting. That's
Well,
something
that's
interesting.
that's what makes the money.
Yeah,
Oh,
but
fuck,
it's also
good.
like I want to see more of this, like games that can be rise to as popular as Splatoon and join these ranks that I just never see. But I'd still love to play new games of older games that I might not have gotten the chance to play because I'm of a certain age. Like what is it? Earthbound. What is it? The one with Ness and Lucas.
Yeah, Earthbound.
Yeah,
Earthbound,
Earthbound.
right.
Yeah, that's the one.
Or
Mother or some shit as well.
In I think in Japan it was called Mother. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's no new games to that.
But it's still beloved by many people.
That's right.
Even the old games are extremely beloved.
Yeah.
Same with things like Mega
can't
Man. I mean, Mega
understand
Man constantly gets new games, but the old games are just as beloved and are often included in collections for newer consoles and such.
Pico Thunder. Smash Bro.
Smash Bros. Has its own legacy.
Yeah.
And it's taken bits and pieces from tons of legacies, but it's created its own.
Including things that and properties that Nintendo doesn't even own. Sonic.
Well, not taking
Minecraft.
Minecraft.
It's
Well, you know
like,
what I
this
mean,
is
I'm-
mine now. This is Anyway, yeah.
No, I'm just saying taking those characters that aren't a part of what the games were like prior. They've been evolved to be more inclusive. Also to have
Steve.
Sonic and Mario
Which
fight.
I find it interesting that it takes the newest games like
Bayonetta.
Minecraft and Splatoon, and also continuing the legacy of older games that no one like Rob mostly.
Rob
That's-
wasn't really a game though.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not-
yeah, yeah.
It's an old concept that doesn't fucking
Game and
exist
Watch.
in this world anymore. But now it's here. It's still being eternalized in this thing for newer audiences.
Yeah,
If
like Game and Watch as well.
If what's his name, Dr. Hirolook is right, and you only die when they are forgotten, then games like Smash Brothers is fantastic for keeping those legacies alive. Even if other series down the line are inspired by it, the new audiences aren't exactly watching those old things.
Yeah.
So if I create a story based on Star Wars, and then my kids were to watch that, but they've never shown them Star Wars, which isn't happening. They'll know what Star Wars. But in that hypothetical,
I
they
don't
don't.
know. What
Star
if they're
Wars-
Mormons?
Star Wars Legacies is now internalized in these newer stories, which newer audiences will never get to experience. In which case, then I'd even say that reboots, modern reinterpretations of stories, are almost essential for keeping those things alive, which is what Hollywood uses as an excuse to make money. But whatever.
Let's have a look. See.
And sometimes it backfires if the thing they're trying to redo is still beloved, despite take something like Ghostbusters. people still love the original Ghostbusters just as much as they did prior. And when people remake it, people don't like it because to them it didn't need to be revitalized. To them, people themselves were still interested, which is when it can backfire.
So then, at what point in history do you eternalize or continue to push forth a legacy? If not when, because there will be a point where people still like it, and then where people no longer
Kong.
care. Where's the middle ground? How do you know when that exists? How do you maintain enough interest to keep this legacy alive without it being dead or without it losing either?
Statisticians.
Memes.
What the fuck did you just say? Memes.
Statisticians.
I don't know what that word means. I'm stupid.
But you know what memes mean.
I know what a meme is, Nathan.
They help legacies.
Yeah, of course.
Weirdly enough,
They're a big
Fortunately
motivator
enough.
to keep things alive.
they keep things alive that really shouldn't be alive.
I mean, the
don't
fucking
give a
the
fuck that
Drake
Will Smith
yeah
attacks
nah
someone.
thing.
I don't give a fuck.
The Drake yeah nah thing will be fucking always immortalized, and some things like that. And it's just some general references like
But it's not just
from
dead.
Pulp Fiction, the John Travolta, huh?
Yeah, that's a brilliant one.
That one will always be remembered.
That's an interesting one because that many people
Memes
use
help
that
Pulp
not
Fiction
even
a
knowing
lot.
what the fuck Pulp Fiction is.
Yeah.
I find it interesting how aspects of certain things are internalized by people that don't even understand
Where it might be from or
the
context.
the extent of what that means.
It's
For
still
them, it doesn't even
in
represent
Pulp
that.
Fiction. It's still a ridiculous thing for the character to be doing at that moment. We're just walking around the boat going, "What?" It's still overly ridiculous, but being able to take that and kind of keep it alive through its own little legacy, it's kind of an interesting thing.
What memes do I use having no grasp or concept of their cultural significance? I wonder.
Say the line, Bart.
Oh yeah, because I've seen all
Say the line, Alex.
I don't think I really use any, to be honest. Except for the monkey touching the guy's cock.
you don't understand the cultural significance of the monkey.
Well, that was a monkey touching his dick, and it's funny.
You don't understand, fake fan. I'm going through my gifts to see which ones of them I don't understand the cultural impact of. I just found ones
I know one that you don't.
Spite Caleb.
I know one that you don't, Alex.
What's up?
The Danny DeVito with the log of wood pushing someone off.
I don't use that.
No, I'm saying like that's one that I feel like occurs a lot as well.
Well,
That
I
people
do
don't
know
understand where that's from. Or,
Oh yeah, that meme format. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was thinking more of Danny DeVito. So I started Blast.
So start blast.
I got some Office gifts saved, and I've never seen an episode of The Office.
Yeah.
There's one of Jeff Goldblum. I don't know where he did that from, but there's one in my favorites.
I've got a reaction face of someone I assume in the NFL. I like the gift, but I will never watch a game, and I'll never know what his name is. I wonder what I even own that I don't understand what its true meaning is. I doubt there's much now because I think I'd look into things I own or got rid of things I don't care about. But there'd be a lot of toys. Like if you give toys to a kid, of a Batman kid, a toy, they're gonna be like, "Oh, a black man." They're not.
What?
They're not. If you don't tell them what Batman is, you don't show them any other Batman media, then they'll just have this toy which they don't understand the cultural significance of. But by giving them that toy and by then cherishing it, you're keeping that idea alive.
True.
Cannot wait to give all my if I assume I have kids, my fucking One Piece figures and go like, go play.
Well, see, I wouldn't do that. That's called bedtime with daddy. One Piece.
They'd fucking break those things. I am not letting them do that.
I mean, Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think there was definitely things that I played with as a kid. I played with some GI Joe shit, and I never fucking ever
I've seen
seen
the
GI
second
Joe.
one of those modern fucking movies. You had The Rock in it.
Never seen a GI Joe film. I had a GI Joe toy as a kid. I remember that.
I have a bunch of Bionicles, and up until literally today, I literally had no clue what Bionicles actually was.
Today?
I just knew no, as in I knew they were Lego stuff that were robots, but other than that, I didn't actually know
They're
anything else about them. I didn't know now I know that there's a fucking entire story and lore to it. I had no fucking idea. I thought they were just cool robots.
Oh, I had I think they're called Byakugan?
Yeah,
Bakugan.
Bakugan, yeah.
Bakugan, that's it. Byakugan's from Naruto. A Bakugan, yeah, I had some of those.
Yeah.
I had Naruto cards. I didn't not Naruto cards, sorry, Pokemon cards. Because from like there's some craze in primary school. I think I've told this before. I'll say it again anyway. I think some kid gave me some of their Pokemon cards, and I had no concept or grasp of how much any of them were worth or what to do with them. So just whenever people play with them, like, hey, let's trade, and I kind of just trade them at random. And then I kind of gave them all away because I had no fucking concept or grasp of what the fuck these things were. It's just other kids were playing with them, and I just acquired some by happenstance. No concept of Pokemon at all.
I would love to know what Pokemon cards you
I'd
had.
love to as well. I so want to know because I now have a grasp of what the fuck a Pokemon is.
He would have had an
And
original
I would know how
Charizard.
much it's worth.
He would have had a Charizard, 100%.
No, I don't think he would have.
No, he would have.
No, I think at that time he might have had like a Blaziken.
No, he would have had a Charizard, trust me. He would have just given him a Charizard. Literally, at this point, we don't fucking know. The kid could have just gone into his vault and gave Alex a Charizard for some fucking reason.
Some other kid has it now.
Now, yeah, some other kid has a Charizard. That'd be very funny.
Why didn't it come to me?
Didn't get him at school.
Ah, yeah, fucking shit.
Should have paid a visit.
I went to two
What are things
primary
I
schools
reference?
because I was cool.
I make reference to things that I don't know what they are. I just know that it is a popular reference.
Such as?
I'm trying to think. I can think of ones that I know now that I've seen of. Like if I say I'll be back, I've seen the Terminator, the first one. I know what that's referencing. But I can't off the top of my head think of one.
Do I reference anything I don't know of?
I think now for the next couple of weeks, I might just send in the chat things I reference. I'm like, hey, I just made a reference to this. I don't know what this is. As examples of ways culture and a legacy of certain piece of fiction permeate through to people that do not understand why.
But it can permeate through people through different means, whether that just be the general internet or the people you hang out with.
Yeah.
Like me saying Danny DeVito quotes can influence you two to say Danny DeVito quotes.
Yeah, and I've not seen much.
That's true. I send sometimes I'll send a Danny DeVito GIF where I've not seen that. I've not seen that episode.
That episode, yeah. Available on Disney Plus. This is the only time I'll promote Disney Plus.
I would, but unfortunately, Rebels.
I would, but unfortunately, no.
Yeah, bitch.
Fortunately, Hondo and Narco is sexy.
I've used to frequently reference The Room, like Oh Hi Mark and shit. I've not seen that movie. I never will. I've seen The Disaster Artist.
I watched it with my brother.
About that movie, but not the original movie.
I watched the original with my brother. It was so stupidly bad. It was great. Oh, hi, Mark.
I think I referenced... I know it's not actually said. It's different variations of what... There's also like misinterpretations of quotes, which is also interesting, but I'm not going to talk much on that. I've said like, beam me up, Scotty. Or like, beam me up. I've never seen Star Trek, ever. Not even the new films. But I've said things
Star Trek's another one with I would say, a legacy in its own right.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Series.
For example,
a completely different cast.
I fucking reference it. No knowledge of it.
fair enough.
Someone made a JoJo reference to me at work. I then shot one back at them, and then I learned they actually hadn't seen JoJo's.
Oh, that's something I actually
What was the
probably
reference?
a lot.
They said Zawaldo, and then I'm like, oh, Mugata Kurunoka, and they're like, what?
Muda. Oda.
I need to memorize that full Dio quote because I love it.
I sometimes I'll reference it was Dio.
Well, you've seen that.
I have.
That was in part one.
That was part one.
Oh, well then I completely forgot about it. So in my books, I'm referencing it without knowing.
But it is in part one. It's when he forcefully kisses Erina. Sort of. And around that.
He wasn't even a vampire yet.
No.
I did reference JoJo's before I watched it, I think.
I would not have. No. I would have referenced the Kamehameha before actually seeing any Dragon Ball.
I think everyone did.
I think everyone did, yeah. When something gets that big, I feel like it's hard.
That being said, I think a lot of people would know where it's from at least. They wouldn't have seen it, but they would know it's from there, if that makes sense.
Oh.
They recognize what it is, but...
Do you remember my exams videos?
Yeah.
One of them referenced took a audio clip out of the movie Taxi Driver from many years ago, which I've not seen. And I'm pretty sure one of them also uses like a remix of some Legend of Zelda OST. I've never played those games. There could be songs I've used that I've found online for any of my many YouTube videos, which could be from things I've never seen, and I didn't even grasp it at the time. So there's that.
True. That is actually interesting music.
And there's even covers of songs you've heard, and you wouldn't even realize that they might have been done several years later, and you never heard the original.
Gangster's Paradise.
Yeah.
The ending of JoJo's.
Which one?
It's the part 3. Oh no, for the first season. What is it?
Roundabout.
Yeah, Roundabout. That's the one.
I don't think that's a cover. I think is that a cover?
It might be. I don't know.
Isn't it just a song?
I thought it was just a song.
It's a yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I've only
JoJo's
heard through
keeps
JoJo's.
fucking
Though.
some of those songs alive by just using them in there.
Yeah.
I've only
And see,
seen...
that's the thing.
Yeah, and you know
I knew of it as Roundabout because of GTA.
Oh yeah, I
On the radio.
made a video, a
I
to
know
be
of
continued
JoJo.
meme compilation. I made that. I made like 6 of those in a 1-minute video. Never seen JoJo. I didn't even know it was from JoJo's. I just made it like that's a to be continued meme going around. Let's make that, guys. And then we did it, and only one of us knew it was JoJo's.
It is a funny meme.
It's a very funny.
I do like the meme. It is very funny.
I had no idea it was JoJo's. I had no idea it was Roundabout. I had no fucking clue. I just searched up to be continued. If had I just searched up JoJo's ED, and I searched up Roundabout, and I searched up JoJo's to be continued, the editing process of the video would have been way quicker.
I at one point genuinely thought it was from Seinfeld. I kid you not. At one point, I genuinely thought it was from Seinfeld.
You know that's fair. That's fair. I can see what.
Is it the style
similar,
of the
similar
yeah,
sound
yeah.
effect? Yeah.
Yeah.
To the dude, whatever.
If it wasn't Seinfeld, I thought it was from something similar. I had no idea it was from a fucking show, or used in that way. It was from
I like
an anime.
anime references in like modern memes that people have not seen from people that haven't seen anime. I like there's the light Yagami laugh, for example, still used today.
Bro, there was one where Gibby from iCarly.
Yes.
And some of our friends would send this picture of Gibby with a Sharingan. And they would send it, I'm thinking, he's got a Sharingan. And they just had no fucking clue. They had no fucking clue that part of that was an anime reference.
Yeah.
They just... I remember trying to say, no, it's a showering gun. He's like, what? What? No, what?
I sent one that I believe people use without actually seeing the show.
What's it?
You've activated my trap card.
Yeah, that one. I say that a lot.
Yeah, you've never seen Yu-Gi-Oh.
Never once.
No.
I
say it all as well.
I don't really say a lot. I will say you fool.
You fool.
What's referencing?
Nothing.
What?
Just you fool. Because
I think
that
I
is
say that
said
from
a lot.
Mastiff.
Oh, true. Yeah, that might be where I get it from. There's some things I reference, but I don't know exactly where I get it from.
Yeah, I make a lot of. Realize after going through the entire Tom Scars videos that some of the things I say are from there. Some of them I don't even know I say from there, and if I show it to my aunt, she'd be like, "Oh, that's where you get it from." I'm like, "What?" Hang on, that what? That what is also a reference to something. Hang on. I know it is. Oh, Daniel Sloss. I say it like
you know what as well, with the Tom Skill ones, you can also be influenced by other people, like when other people say things and it just gets permeated through you, whereas someone else could have gotten it through Tom Scar, but you could have gotten it through something else or someone else.
I know I've made references to things because Kayla makes references to things, and I don't know what they are.
Really?
I did one. I think I made a Skyrim reference on accident. I don't remember when, but I said it, and you're like, "What did you say?"
It does sound familiar, but I wouldn't be able to recall.
So like for the
What
nine
reference?
thing.
I'm surprised you fucking know that, but there could be
You mongrel.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was actually. Well, yeah, maybe it was.
I mean, I just sent one that I think people
Also,
got me to say it because they used it so much before
when you
actually
swear
seeing
in
it.
other languages, I say that. I think I've accidentally said like fita or stonato before.
I do not.
I'm trying to get out of I'm trying to say things in Greek, not what the fuck you say it in.
Fit I got from Anomaly, which is funny because people, when I would say it, sometimes people think I got it from PewDiePie, but no, I got it from Anomaly because he made these videos where he would open crates from CS:GO and he just yelled "Fita," which means cunt in Swedish, I think, and that just stuck.
Yeah, and I say that occasionally at work.
Now it's become "Fika," which is like I think means a similar thing in Italian. But the similar thing of an F word will do pretty much. I think I even saw like some of our mates. He's Greek and he started to say it's an Italian word, and then another guy who was not Greek started using Greek words to insult people, which I thought was funny.
I think I've heard one of the Jacks say
Jack,
block.
Actual Jack says used to say Malakia.
Yeah.
What does he say, Malakia?
He used to. He doesn't say much anymore, but he used to.
I think he says. I think I heard him say Malaka like a month ago.
I think he says that, but not. He used to say Malakia a lot. He used to say that a lot.
Who did he?
There was a phase.
Must have been from Dean.
It would not have been from me. I don't say that word.
I love that word, but I have very little.
And then Dean took Stronzo. At one point, it was called.
That's from you. That's clearly from you.
Yeah, I took Stronzo a couple times.
I actually never really said Stronzo a lot. He started saying that, and I started saying it again. I would have used it before, potentially. But now I mainly use Stonato.
I prefer English swear words
I
too.
use that a lot. Yeah.
I just prefer English swear words. Just
true, but
I want people to know what I said to them.
I
want people to know the intent behind my words.
The amount of times something happens and I'm at work and with Ryan, I just say every Greek word that comes to mind, not swear words, everyone that comes to mind. He's just so confused.
Ochi.
Even just saying something that's like in English would be like not that bad, and maybe in Italian it wouldn't even be that bad as well. But it's just funny to say a swear word to something because it sounds really bad when you say it, but it's in Mommy not. When I say sometimes I'll say to someone "tu mucca," which just means you cow. In English, it wouldn't mean anything unless it's directed towards a woman. But
I've just realized we've completely got off track.
It doesn't matter.
no, that's true.
We said our piece. We can talk about whatever we want now. Who gives a shit? I'm just trying to think about what swear words do I say a lot? I used to say "you fool" a lot. I do vividly remember that, but I feel like there was another one with the same kind of British. Me speaking posh. I say something similar.
Preposterous?
No, not like the word posh. I just say it very poshly.
Preposterous.
No, I wouldn't say that word. You fool.
Imbecile.
No,
I'm thinking. I don't know.
there was something. What's the word? I don't say it much anymore, but it was something I said a lot.
I say "what the fuck" a lot because there's that one video where the guy's fishing, and he says, "Finally, I get to eat," and the girl comes up and says
Out of
something.
protest now, I do say
And he
cunt
goes,
a
"What
lot.
the fuck?"
Out of protest, I do say cunt a lot. Towards Americans mostly.
Yeah, because it's funny pissing them off.
Yeah.
Just say cunt regularly.
Yeah, I do that
I say
too.
"cunt" regularly,
like,
but it's funny when it's in front of Americans because they don't like it.
yeah.
I also want to.
It's weird how much they don't like it, but it's also like you say things I don't like and you don't hear me complaining.
I want to start saying Dank Farrick.
What?
Oh, okay. Here's the thing. All right. So the other day we were playing Battlefront, and that entire time I think I refused to say droids. I just called them clankers. And every time I would go to say separatist, I couldn't say separatist. I'd say sepi, which I think is just beautiful. I didn't even make a conscious choice to do that. It just subconsciously I called them clankers. But it is funny when we get stuff from other media.
Honestly, we're all trying to stay clankers a bit more now.
Channel the inner clone.
I call you two fat fucks a lot.
Oh yeah, there's I say hello a bunch, which is
Hello.
I don't remember exactly which video that's from, and I'm too lazy to go through their entire videography.
The Australians come over to the Wogs for Australia Day, and they're trying to find the front door, and he comes out all bloody hello. That's when it comes. Bro, the Super Wog references, I swear to God, someone will say something and I'll immediately know it's Super Wog. It's just
It's the way you say it.
even if it's like nothing, even if it's so stupid and it's so minor,
You just did one. You just did one of yours. The way you say stupid. Like
really?
you go stupid.
You stupid child.
That's one that you do.
You stupid. And you are an idiot. Yeah, idiot. Yeah, well, if I call someone an idiot, I'll go idiot.
Oh, he does say hello. Yeah, I just want to go find it. What? What I miss?
You're an idiot.
Fuck! My life is ruined!
Yeah, actually, I will say fuck a lot. Fuck.
What's the next line? You are a curse?
What did you call me?
Curse.
You know, I say, are you lost from the circus?
Sorry?
I say, are you lost from the circus?
Stupid.
Oh.
Fuck. What have I done? Doc.
I say good for you a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna.
Don't know where it's
I'll
from.
say
I just,
tickets, and then
And
you're like,
what?
I'm like, okay.
And what?
If you say passive aggressive,
Yeah.
that's more
It's
of a
hard to
you and
say.
Jack one.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say without being like, yeah.
Good for you.
difficult. It's difficult to do so. I noticed that if you put like man at the end, like good for you, man, then that seems genuine.
Yeah,
Good for you.
yeah,
Why
that
I
does.
occasionally say okay buddy man, because that's like the one okay buddy is sarcastic, okay buddy man is just more sarcastic, and I love it. So I try and say that a lot.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes it's just small words can be added on, and it's like not as bad. It's like you're welcome. That's supposed to be just a polite thing to say after someone says thank you, but it can often sound like you're taking the piss.
Oh, I take the piss with that one. That's a me one to take the piss with. It's thank
I
you
say
and you're welcome. I do it a lot.
I say you're welcome mostly with the things that we both parties know I had no contribution in.
Yeah, yeah, same.
Someone's like, I just found this on the floor, and I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, that's something. That's a me thing.
But you're welcome genuinely. I say no worries, no problem, because you're welcome can genuinely, seeing it in actual context, can be taken passive aggressively. And I don't want to do that.
There's a problem with what you just said. I can see the outline.
Oh, well done. Not all devices can.
Oh, can't they?
I was so close to sending that when I was going through my gifts. And
I just see the outline of the fucking Rickroll. The
If you
bloody
hover over it,
Rickroll.
then
yeah, exactly. That's the joke.
if you hover over it, then you can see the outline. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the point. When you're off of it, you won't be able to see shit.
I'm not hovered over it. It's just that I can see the.
Yeah, well,
outline.
that might be just a different device then. Yeah.
I found this one. I still haven't properly been able to use it. I love it so much.
Man, the stream has no fucking clue what
I don't give a shit anymore. I'm tired. I'm sleepy. I just want to go play Lego Star Wars. I finished all my assignments and shit. I'm on holidays now. Huh? Please. You start saying that one a lot more now, Caleb.
Well, yeah, it's his fucking nickname in this. And I'm starting to pick on it. My dad used to say that you want some, I'll give it you. For a while. So when that video came around, I'm like, huh, cool.
I used to say it a lot in year 8. Like, year 8, that was a lot. And then I just stopped. And then now it's just like, funny again.
You've got no friends.
It's just, because, okay, I've looked at the background shit. And he's actually, he was actually being followed around a lot.
A lot of what I say are just references.
To be honest, it was just funny. It's just funny because it's like, the appearance of it is this drunk guy at the football, British guy, having a go at the team and then having a go at some other fellas behind him and talking shit. And that's just very funny. When the British talk shit, it's very, very funny. I don't know why. Bit like Aussies talking shit, but...
Wait. He has a son?
I love it.
He has a son?
We've seen that
We
episode.
get that one, so that's yeah.
Yeah, but after I showed
But
you.
it's still a fantastic reference. We never said it before you showed it to us.
We
I
made the
did.
reference afterwards.
No, I said it before. No, you had no clue
then-
what I said.
Yeah,
Yeah, I understand the pain. I need to show everyone
I
know.
don't, because I only say it to you. Oh, when you're around, I think.
Yeah. I should be doing that. But
I say it to other people, and it's just funny to see them get confused. And if one of you is around, you just understand.
I'm just dying laughing. It's unreasonably funny. In the context of the episode and in the context.
Cause you just go, wait.
Wait.
Hold on. Wait. He has a son?
Hondo, what a legend.
He's beautiful. Anyway, I think we said all that we wanted to say for this episode.
What do we got next week? I wonder.
Oh, it's blank.
Yeah, but like, what are we gonna decide for next?
Stuff.
Whatever. What an episode.
We'll figure it out.
We go off topic, and that's the real heart of this. Going off topic.
Watch the
Bye-bye.
Planet of the Apes films. Bye bye.
Monkey.
I was rewatching the new trilogy.
Shut the fuck up.